Everyone loves the beach. Sun-kissed, exciting surf, cute chicks. To us, it's one giant playground. But to wildlife, it's so much more. It's a place to live, to find food, to raise their young. Sandcastles and fish and chips? No, the beach is full of surprises. A giant, usually at home roaming the deep oceans of the world, is in the shallows. She has a special destination in mind. This is a scene unchanged for over 200 million years. It's an epic struggle to drag her huge, heavy body, perfectly designed for swimming, but cumbersome on land. But the reward will be worth it. She manages to climb beyond the tide line, but now the hard work really begins. She's here to build a sandcastle, a fortress to guard her legacy. About 100 ping-pong ball-sized eggs. With the clutch laid, she tenderly covers the precious nest. This is what her mother did, and her grandmother, and all female sea turtles through the ages. With the eggs secured, she'll return to the sea, knowing that she's left the next generation with the best possible chance for survival. A place that offers ideal temperatures, humidity, and proximity to the sea. The success of all sea turtles depends on this one thing: the beach. The first thought the word conjures for us is of summer vacations. Sandcastles, volleyball, crunchy sandwiches, donkey rides, and ice cream. Beaches first started drawing summer visitors back in the 1700s. It was the birthplace of tourism. During the 1800s, beachside resorts sprung up and became places where city folk could escape the hustle and bustle, relax, and have fun. Most of us see beaches as giant playgrounds. It's easy to forget that they are also vital habitats, homes to myriads of animals. In Iceland, Arctic foxes scavenge, never knowing what treats the sea might wash up. Australia's tropical beaches, when not covered in sun worshippers, are patrolled by cassowaries, using the sand as a place to hang out and hook up. And there's plenty of monkey business on the warmer beaches of Japan. And apart from their importance to animals, beaches are landscapes that influence weather, erosion, and water quality. We need beaches for more than just R&R, and so do many other species. When we think of beaches, we picture summer sun. But it's in winter, when the crowds have gone, that it's easiest to see its importance to nature. Though storm-battered and ice-blasted, the beaches of the North Atlantic are once again witnessing the start of life. Grey seals have a rude arrival. Born into a windswept winter. The wind helps dry the wet fur. Once they're fluffy and white, the downy fur protects them from the cold. But their real winter warmer is a thick layer of blubber. Their body wraps of fat are fueled by their mother's rich milk. Cow's milk is about 3% fat. The seal's milkshake diet is 50% fat. The pups will gain 2 kilos in just 3 weeks. That's calorie loading. Most of us try to lose weight to have the perfect beach body. Seals do the opposite, and they're not the only ones. Winter beaches the world over attract birds, and not just a few, but vast flocks. Wildfowl and waders leave their breeding grounds in the polar regions to find shelter over winter. Many waders weigh less than a golf ball, but that doesn't stop them from being world travelers. Some fly more than 10,000 kilometers non-stop. Journeys can be as far as New Zealand to Alaska, with perhaps a quick break on a beach. Some just use the beaches as fueling stations and places to rest. For others, this is their winter residence. And it's all because of the abundant life of the beach. A winter beach might appear desolate, but don't be fooled. Every meter of sand might host millions of animals. It's just that most of them are out of sight. Worms. Crustaceans. And tiny shellfish live under the sand. Some are so tiny that they can even inhabit the spaces between grains of sand. They might not look very impressive, but these tiny creatures are some of the toughest on the planet. For while we might think of the beach as a place to relax and play, for wildlife, it's one of the hardest places to make a living. Several times a day, their home is flooded by the incoming tide. They have to cope with the deluge. Salt water. And the turbulence of the waves. And when the sea retreats, and they're left high and dry, at risk of desiccation. It's a tough life, but for those who master it, the rewards are rich. Every tide washes in a soup of nutrients. The animals are literally swimming in food. And living a life buried in the sand offers protection from most predators. But not all. Wading birds have developed huge variations in beak length and shape to probe into the mud. Shorter beaked species pick over the surface, but others have long beaks. Godwits and striking oyster catchers have sword-like snouts for probing deep into the sand. On Australian beaches, the birds can be a lot bigger. Pelicans drop in to feed. Swimming in a row and using their throat pouches like nets, they can drive fish into each other's beaks. And while they are not feeding on the beach itself, once they've eaten, the sandbanks offer a perfect place to dry off and preen their plumage, displacing the cormorants already trying to do the same. Beaches provide the birds with rich pickings year-round, and especially while they try to weather the winter. At this time of year, the sea is at its most turbulent. Huge storms rip up giant waves that pound the beach. It's a landscape for only the brave or foolhardy. Beaches are in constant flux. During the summer, waves constantly lap gently at the shore. And as they do, they carry sand off the beach and dump it into the deeper water. As their erosion action eats into sandbanks, it creates mini cliffs, the ideal place for sand martins to nest. These sparrow-sized birds fly from Africa to Europe to nest. Using their tiny legs to dig into the sand. The steep, soft substrate makes their colonies almost impenetrable to would-be predators. But they are only temporary. Over winter, the cliffs will be washed away, and the next season, the martins will have to start again. The constant eroding sand is washed off the beach, gradually forming sandbars. Now those bars protect the beach itself. Some of the potentially devastating force of the waves is absorbed by the sandbars before it hits the beach. In this way, beaches protect the coastline and human developments by taking the brunt of storms and through their sand absorbing the eroding waves. Nonetheless, the action of waves and wind over the winter will gradually shift sand back up the beach. Piling it high in mounds called dunes that can even engulf buildings. These are mountains of sand on the move. Though many are gradually locked into place by the roots of plants, only coastal specialists can tolerate the dunes. They have to cope with strong winds, salt, and water that sinks quickly through the dunes and out of reach. Grasses like marram are especially important. As sand is piled on top, the grass keeps pushing through, increasing the height of the dune and cementing it in place with a network of roots. Over time, the stabilized ground can be colonized by other species. And gradually transformed to heathland. Within dune systems, damp depressions might harbor orchids, unusual insects, and rare reptiles and amphibians. And eventually even creatures usually found further inland. The dunes are a natural sea defense, protecting the land from the forces of the sea. And sheltering the creatures of the beach. The banks of sand are nurseries where the grey seal pups can hang out. Though they're only a few weeks old, the comfortable life of sitting around drinking milk is over. Their mothers have a new agenda. It's time for them to mate again, getting pregnant now to deliver next winter. Huge bull seals come ashore. At around 300 kilos, they are a third bigger than the mothers. Each lays claim to a stretch of beach. The better one's waterfront property, the more appealing it will be to females. The bull's aim is to round up as many mates onto their patch of beach as they can. Of course, when the stakes are so high, when the results make the difference between getting sex or not getting sex, a good bit of beach is worth fighting for. The bulls tear at each other's thick throats with canine teeth that would make a lion jealous. Often, it doesn't take long for a smaller male to realize it's up against a lone bull. Sensible males will retreat before getting hurt. But when the big boys clash, the fights can be savage. The bulls rival lions with their big skull, long canines, and powerful bites. The overthrown, torn apart by war, will have to stand aside as the victors claim their prize. Mating can happen on the beach, but is usually more successful when the bulky bodies are supported by the waves. The pups are left high and dry. Lonely and confused, they begin to explore and make friends. They cannot leave the beach in their white fur coats. This is baby fur to keep them warm on the beach. It's not very waterproof. It doesn't stop a few pups from a paddle. Curiosity drives their exploration. Fortunately, they have thick blubber to keep out the cold. After about a month on their own, they begin a radical change. Their first molt. The white down replaced with shorter, darker and more tightly packed hair. No longer woolly, it's not such a good windbreak. But it will trap air when they dive, helping to keep them warm during their future life, most of which would be spent in the water. Gradually, both the young seals and the huge flocks of wading birds depart from the beaches. And winter gently loosens its grip. Not all of the waders go, and new birds soon arrive, because once again, the beach is expecting babies. Beaches are vital for the breeding success of many species. Birds, mammals, invertebrates, and fish all need the rolling sand. Many, like the Caspian terns, will nest nowhere else. They're not great nest builders, but on sand, they don't need to be. Its surface is covered with gently sloping soft craters that can support their precious eggs. And because many species of fish use the sandy beaches as places to lay their eggs, or hide in the sandy shallows, when the tern's chicks hatch, the parents don't have to go far to find food. The few lonely human visitors to the beach, willing to brave it before things warm up, might stumble on signs of spring along the strand line. Beachcombers are used to the chalky white shells of cuttlefish. The intelligent mollusks normally live in a few hundred meters of water, but in spring move into the shallows close to the beaches to spawn. Males compete over females, flashing pulses of color all over their bodies, hoping to look sexy to the girls or intimidating to their rivals. They try to guard the most appealing egg-laying sites, structures on the seabed that can be used to anchor eggs. Once a male's attracted a female's attention, he grabs her and wrestles her round until they are tentacles to tentacles. He'll use a modified tentacle to plant a sperm sac into an opening on her face. Then he'll stand guard over her for a few hours until she's laid her clutch. Dozens of grape-like eggs. Soon after mating, most of the adults will die. Their soft bodies quickly deteriorating. Only the pen, the white rod that supported their flesh, is left and washes onto the beach. The eggs and hatching cuttlefish are another draw for the birds. Terns and gulls gather in huge colonies to nest. There's safety in numbers, more pairs of eyes to spot danger. Some of the beach birds take the opposite approach. It can be hard to see what's right under your feet. Instead of gathering in big noisy mobs, they nest discreetly, alone, hoping no one will spot their well-camouflaged young. The ringed plover chick knows to lie motionless while his parents are away. Both parents will dash in to find it, but don't linger. They don't want to draw attention. All of these ground nesting birds are incredibly vulnerable and susceptible to disturbance. They need to get their chicks fledged and independent as soon as possible, because summer is rapidly approaching and things are going to change in the beach community. Hundreds of thousands of people will head to the beach in summer. Each meter will be visited, trampled, covered in towels, and splashed with sun cream. There isn't much space left here for wildlife. Not that we give much thought to that. The beach becomes a giant playground. Animals still flock, but only if they can find a quiet stretch or the shores of an island where there's a chance of some peace. Deer often visit beaches. On the wild coasts of Russia, a group of sika deer are venturing out of the forest. Their leafy diet is low in minerals and salts, but the beach offers a solution: seaweed. A delicious treat washed up daily by the tide, rich in nutrients. The deer are nervous, and with good reason. They are not the only beachcombers. A rare Siberian tiger has decided to have a picnic on the beach. A sika deer, its favorite fast food. Though there are only around 500 Siberian tigers left, they have a huge range and can find food in forests, mountains, or along the coast. Vultures and ravens watch him take every bite. And once he's full, move in for leftovers. You never know who might decide to visit the beach. On the Pacific coast of North America, a black bear's looking for a snack. And he's got a neat way of finding it. Flipping rocks. When the tide goes out, little creatures must find safe hiding places. Though it turns out, with a bear around, nowhere's safe. Using his ingenuity, he can feast on crab. And on that same Pacific coast, giants gather to hunt little crabs and their cousins. Gray whales spend winter in the warm waters off Baja, California, but travel north in the summer to exploit the riches of the beach. When the tide comes in and covers mudflats, the whales can roam the waterlogged beach, sifting crustaceans from the sand. On many beaches around the world, humans become the dominant species for the summer. But there are a few far-flung corners where humans are scarce and animals rule the beach. The Skeleton Coast in Namibia is famed as a wrecker of ships. Their carcasses litter the shore. The fierce storms might put people off picnicking here, but the beaches offer open space for breeding wildlife. Gannet colonies cling to the more rugged tips. While the bays are chock full of blubber. Cape fur seals. Chaos reigns on the crowded beaches. Bulls trying to secure mates. And cows trying to keep their calves from being trampled. Of course, with so much weight being thrown around, accidents happen. A cunning opportunist, the jackal knows it's worth a visit. It's a dangerous undertaking. Angry bulls and protective mothers make their feelings clear. Being on the receiving end of a 300-kilo bull could have fatal consequences. But boldness is rewarded. A stillborn pup. Valuable treasure on a hostile beach. Most of us seek easier treats on our trips to the beach. Ice cream, souvenirs, and of course, fish and chips. though the demand for seafood might take its toll on the creatures living on the edge of the beach. Having humans around makes life hard for just about all the animals of the coast. Only a few have learned to make the most of their seasonal neighbors. Sadly, our love of the beach is destroying it. Waterfront property is in high demand. Development everywhere needs sand for cement. And there's an ever-growing pressure for ports to grow to support a vast fleet of cargo ships. There's another insidious threat. Climate change. As ice caps melt, sea levels rise. And disruption to the atmosphere is resulting in more dramatic storms. The coastlines are being pounded. Storms, hurricanes, and tornadoes do millions of dollars worth of damage every year and claim human lives. Yet we continue to build on and destroy the sandy beaches that can help absorb some of the forces of nature. Some efforts are made to build up beaches, both to ensure bathing spots for tourists, but also to bolster sea defenses. But the sand shifted is packed with tiny animals. Creatures that have taken millions of years to perfectly adapt to the water's edge are hoisted up the beach to totally different levels of temperature and humidity. For most, it will prove fatal. Left alone, these creatures help us in everyday life by filtering water and cycling nutrients that will feed their way up the food chain. And any changes disrupt the breeding sites of everything from crabs and mollusks to birds and seals. Eventually, the crowds will desert the beach, but their presence will remain. Unlike animals, humans are not good at keeping their environments tidy. The coastline has a new wave of litter. Pieces of plastic can greatly endanger wildlife. Anything and everything can find itself tangled. For most, it's a death sentence. The plastic will eventually break down into tiny fragments. It becomes invisible and easy to forget. But even these minuscule pieces are deadly. From the small animals in the sea, the plastic particles are consumed, Creatures higher in the food chain eat the smaller animals, and the plastic is passed on up. And we humans are at the top of the food chain, eating the same poisoning plastics that we left on the beach. Is the destruction too much? Slowly but surely, people are starting to see the importance of protecting beaches and their animal inhabitants. Here on the coast of Turkey, like many other traditional turtle nesting beaches, the nests are trampled by people during the day. But conservationists cover nests to stop them from being crushed and help turtles out of compacted sand. With a helping hand, and better still, a bit of space where they're left alone, hundreds of baby turtles begin their journeys. The long-lived turtles will be ocean wanderers. But when they are ready, in perhaps 20 years, they will return to the beaches where they hatched, as long as there is still space for them. It's a relationship they've had with the coast for eons. By dawn, there's no sign of the little ones. The beach is ready for the tourists to return. Beaches are wonderful places. To nature, they are safe havens to raise their young. And to find abundant food resources. To land masses, they are natural sea defenses. Helping to reduce the impact of storms that can wreak havoc and threaten life. And to humans, they are playgrounds where we can relax, play, reconnect with each other, and the great outdoors. And as long as we respect the beaches of the world and look after them, and remember to take our litter home, they'll be our playgrounds for generations to come.